Just how important is the proper service of wine? Perhaps one has to travel around the world, visiting restaurants and private homes, to realize that, unfortunately, wine is often not given the good service it deserves. Books have been written. Indeed, I myself have written one, on how to serve wine and the care which should be taken. But in practice, such know-how is seldom made use of. Often, tablecloths are too bright. Wine glasses aren't suitable. The cork is not removed correctly. In the next few minutes, we are going to show you how the service of wine should be carried out. Selection of the tablecloth is without doubt the first step in preparing the table. White tablecloths are the most appropriate to appreciation of the color of the wine. Only in the case of rosé wines is a pink or pale yellow tablecloth used for a better harmony of colors. The shape of the wine glasses, their size, and the way they are washed are also important factors in achieving a successful wine tasting. The glasses should be of a fine crystal, absolutely transparent, totally uncolored, and should also be narrower in the neck than in the body, so that the wine's aromas are retained. The size of the glass should be sufficient to allow the wine to be swirled in a natural way without spilling. The glass should also have a stem and a foot, so that the wine taster does not hold the glass by the body, and thus avoids heating up the wine with the hands. Glasses should be washed with water and without perfumed detergents. They should be dried with a clean, unscented napkin. They should never be stood upside down, as they will acquire the smell of the table or work surface. Ideally, they should be hung up, thus avoiding intrusive aromas. The temperature of the wine at the moment of service is possibly the most neglected aspect of wine service on tables throughout Spain. True, white or rosé wines, recently removed from the fridge or cooled in an ice bucket, are generally served at the right temperatures. But a serious problem, an extremely serious problem in fact, is that red wines are all too often served far too warm. This surprises visitors from abroad, who are used to stricter rules when it comes to wine service. In general, red wine should never be served at above 18 degrees centigrade. It is sometimes said that red wine should be served chambré, or at room temperature. But it is forgotten that this precept comes from the 18th century, when the lack of any heating in homes meant that the temperature indoors was around 17 or 18 degrees centigrade. One very useful instrument, which I recommend to all our viewers, is the pocket thermometer. This, which, if you allow me one moment I will show you, is a tool which allows you, at home or in the restaurant, to test the quality of wine service and see if the wine has been served at the correct temperature. Each wine needs a specific service temperature in order to appreciate its qualities better. Dry white wines should be served at between 7 and 10 degrees centigrade. At higher temperatures, alcoholic values and secondary aromas stand out. Sweet and medium dry whites are best at between 6 and 8 degrees centigrade, which maintains their fruitiness. At higher temperatures, their sweetness stands out too much. Serve sparkling wines at between 6 and 8 degrees centigrade. At lower temperatures, they lose their nuances, and any higher, undesirable bitter aromas emerge. Aged white wines should be served at between 10 degrees and 12 degrees centigrade, to keep aging aromas in balance with fruity aromas. A temperature of between 10 and 12 degrees centigrade suits rosé wines. At lower temperatures, the hints of red grapes are lost, and at higher temperatures they lose delicacy. Young reds maintain their red wine characteristics at between 12 and 15 degrees centigrade, whilst taking on an extra freshness. Aged reds are best served at between 17 and 18 degrees centigrade, to exude the tertiary aromas acquired during aging. The alcohol would stand out at higher temperatures, disguising some of the spicy aromas of bottle aging. The use of air-conditioned cabinets assures the correct temperature for the service of wine. An ice bucket is almost essential to maintain whites, rosés and young reds at the correct temperature during the meal. This is also recommended for aged red wines, which are found to be too warm. A bottle of red wine at a room temperature of 23 degrees centigrade will, if placed in an ice bucket with 7 or 8 ice cubes, maintain at the ideal service temperature of 17-18 degrees centigrade. In many good restaurants, we often notice that the sommelier, or wine waiter, goes through a veritable ritual in the service of wine, preparing the bottle, cutting the capsule, removing the cork. All of these details carried out with great attention and care. And we ask ourselves, does wine really deserve this treatment? The answer is yes. Wine does deserve this ceremony, and especially in a restaurant. It is a mark of the restaurant's prestige and shows proper attention to the customer. These details of the ritual performed by the sommelier are very important, and we're going to watch a practical demonstration carried out by Mr. Custodio Zamarra of Restaurant Zalacaín in Madrid, one of the best restaurants in Spain and well known all over the world. The sommelier shows the bottle to the guest, announcing the name and vintage of the wine so that it meets their approval. Next, the capsule is cut below the lip, avoiding wine capsule contact. If this were not done, metal particles could be left, which might come into contact with the wine. The bottleneck is then cleaned with a damp cloth. On removing the cork, one should pay attention to the length of the corkscrew, never letting the screw pass completely through the cork, as this leaves cork deposits in the wine. Once the cork has been removed, it is smelt and offered to the guest for quality approval. The bottleneck is then cleaned again. The sommelier will taste the wine to check its condition. If the wine is found suitable, then it is offered to the host of the table for approval. Once the wine is deemed fit, the sommelier will serve the other guests, filling the host's glass last of all. If, however, the sommelier thinks the wine is closed up and that it needs some oxygenation, it is decanted to release certain aromas which have been suppressed during aging in the bottle. The moment has arrived when the wine is being poured into glasses. But we all too frequently notice that the glasses are overfilled, above all in the case of whites and rosés, but also sometimes with reds as well. It's important that the glasses are not filled to more than half their capacity. The reason being that this allows the temperature to rise, and as a result, the wine can become too warm. What is the solution to this problem? Very simple, although it may seem obvious. But simply keeping a bottle within arm's reach of each individual guest enables him to serve himself with wine as he pleases, or serve his fellow diners, without filling the glasses 3/4 full, as is so often seen in restaurants. This may mean that an additional bottle of wine is sold, but unfortunately such good service is not often offered. I think that it is better for the guests to decide for themselves, so that glasses are not overfilled, especially during the last half of the meal. When wine is poured into glasses, its temperature rises rapidly, changing its qualities. To avoid this warming, and to ensure that the guest can comfortably swirl the wine in the glass without spilling it, glasses should only be half filled. Once the wine has been poured, the bottle should be left on the table so that it remains within reach of every guest, allowing him to read the label and back label whenever he wants. Important information is found on the back label, such as vinification methods, varietal characteristics, facts about wine areas, and other data which will familiarize the guest with the wine. Leaving the bottle on the table also allows the customers to serve themselves when they so wish, and with the quantity of wine that they desire. When serving aperitifs, it is important that the bottle is placed in the middle of the tray. In this way, the guests will always know which wine they are tasting. In my opinion, this attention to detail dignifies the service of wine and helps to lend prestige to our restaurants or homes. I think that this scrupulous observance of detail is worthwhile because it makes the customer or friend feel looked after and helps them to recognize the difference between our restaurant or home and other establishments. So, the service of wine is a very important ceremony, which forms part and substance of our very own traditional Mediterranean culture, which we can proudly champion all over the world. Cheers.